Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Shameless in Chicago. This is your host, Nin.
And I'm Luke.
And on today's episode, we're actually going to get a little bit serious, and we're going to talk about our adults' failure to launch.
And who are our adults?
So our adults for this category, we are going to be talking about people between the ages of 20 and 35.
Oh, so that's us. So this play is about us?
Yeah. The story's about us.
Okay. So what's happening in America recently with our adults?
So the other day on Monday, I actually got an email from Robinhood. And if those of you that are subscribed to them, they have these things that are called snacks. And they basically just give you like little tidbits as to what's going on in the country, what's going on with the stock market, all of that. No, it is not the snacks in your belly. I saw it touch his belly.
I thought they were giving us incentives.
No. So I saw that they said that the unemployment rate has actually reached an all-time high since 2021 in the U.S.
Really?
Yes. And not only that, as most of you probably know, the stock market did see a really steep decline after this weekend. Yeah, were you there for that? Did you see everyone?
I think I was somewhere else. I was at Voodoo Donuts probably.
But yes, so I decided to do some digging on my own, and I found out that 7.2 million Americans are currently unemployed. And when I brought that fact up to Luke, he said,
well, so when we look at our unemployment rates, we have to keep in mind that these numbers are not calculated for everyone. These numbers are calculated for people seeking jobs. So that alone just shows you the unemployment rate of people actually wanting to work has risen exponentially. And since the start of the history of the United States, we've never seen a work shortage like this before.
Yeah, it's actually kind of insane because when I was looking this up, Luke was like, well, let's compare it to the recession in 2008. No.
Oh, no.
It does not compare. If you're watching this on YouTube, we have the picture uploaded and attached and you will see it. But for those of you that are listening to us, so if we go ahead and look at this chart in December 2009, so we'll say about then, unemployment was at 9.9%, which was at the peak of the recession.
That was the all-time high back before COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And then as you kind of see, it starts to decline. And by February 2020, we're at a very low 3.5% unemployment rate, which was actually amazing.
A historic
low, yes. We didn't even get there in January 2004. We were at 5.7% unemployment rate. And then it skyrocketed to 14.6% in April of 2020.
Now, how many people are there in America?
There is about 330 million Americans.
So 14% of 300 million Americans? I can't even begin to spit at that number. People weren't even able to feed their families or get formula.
Yeah. Oh my God. Remember the formula shortage?
It's
that was
still
insane.
happening.
Yeah. No, that was wild. And then so after the pandemic, so it had a sharp decline for unemployment. It went down to 6.7% in November of 2020. And it started to go down, but then January 2022, we see it go down a little bit. And as of recent, we've seen an uptick. So the lowest we got was 3.4% in April of 2023. And we are now going up to 4.3% in July 2024.
And that's honestly some scary numbers right there because we're seeing these numbers climb because there's honestly businesses closing left and right.
Yep.
For construction companies, there are insurance companies that have started to shut out these clients entirely because of their liability for injury and accident. So we're closing entire industries because essentially the cost of healthcare is too high.
And the cost of so many things is just ridiculous. And you know what's so disheartening about this unemployment rate is that we're seeing people like BP, like McDonald's, like all of these companies report record-breaking profits, but then they'll kind of mask it and be like, oh, we saw a decline in sales. Okay, sure, you saw a decline in sales, but what about your profits? No, your profits are exponentially higher. If we just look at Walmart alone, they have gotten rid of cashiers, and they literally just have self-checkouts to reduce the number of employees that they need at a time. But they are having record-breaking profits in the billions.
Yeah, and don't forget, they also cut their hours. They have not gone back to 24-hour Walmarts.
That's actually very true. No, ever since the pandemic, they stopped the 24 hours, so they definitely don't need that many employees.
So do you think that contributes to our unemployment rate?
No, I don't think that contributes to our unemployment rate. I would have to say AI has to contribute to our unemployment rate. I also have to say that people not having money to spend contributes to our unemployment rate. So if you don't have money to spend, you're not going out and buying these things. So for example, let's say I have enough money to get my nails done, right? But all of a sudden, the cost of living has just gotten too high. I'm no longer getting my nails done. I literally have not gotten my nails done in the longest time. And that's because I can just no longer afford to do it anymore. Thank you. And imagine how many other people are all on the same boat as me. So then you're having a decline of customers, and then nail salons aren't opening up, or they're not seeing the same amount of return customers. So you're going to start to see a decline.
And I feel like the recent raises to the interest rates for credit has also contributed to that.
Yeah, what's your credit card percentage at? Is that like 30%?
My credit card's just under 30%. And when I was reading all these articles, because I think we raised it 4 times in 365 days, which is unprecedented.
Oh my gosh.
And when you do that, they said that, oh, we're going to raise interest rates to help curb spending to the American people. But this economy is run by our spending. So why wouldn't we lower these interest rates? That way we could have more freedom to pay off these cards and spend more money.
Yes. And speaking of spending money, do you all know what the average household buyer is?
I really hope it's 27.
35.
So you're telling me I can't buy a house until I'm emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, no. Actually, your frontal lobe develops at 25, so you are emotionally intelligent already.
I'm responsible for my own actions.
Yeah, you really are. No, okay, so all of these statistics that we're getting, you guys, are from the Department of Labor, and we're also getting them from NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors. So these are all very reputable sources. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read you guys this article from CBS News, and they cite their sources using NAR, and I looked it up, so everything is reputable. I think that they do an amazing job generalizing as to what is going on in the American economy currently. So it says, quote, the typical age to buy a first home has jumped to 36 years old, the oldest ever on record.
Oh, no.
This number keeps jumping back and forth between 36 and 35. Regardless, it's not in your 20s. So if you're in your 20s and you bought a home, good for you. You are the anomaly. The rising age is a sign that high housing costs and mortgage rates are pushing homeownership out of reach for younger Americans. One thing that I do want to tell everyone, and I don't know if any of you have heard of this, but buying a home has actually become more difficult as of late. So like you guys heard in our last podcast episode, I became a licensed real estate agent.
We didn't release that one.
Huh?
We didn't release that one.
Oh. Well, that's Luke not doing his job. Okay, in our previous episode that we didn't upload, I stated that I went to real estate school and got my real estate license. So after doing that, I learned some new things, and a new ruling actually came out where before, when you would go and buy a home, right, and you would have a realtor and all of that, if you were a buyer, you weren't responsible for paying your real estate agent. The person selling their house was going to pay your real estate agent. So it was going to be like a commission, right? So I'm selling my house. I bought it for $80,000. I'm now selling it for $120,000. Obviously, I have more wiggle room. Whereas somebody who's just buying a house, there's so many closing costs and upfront costs that you just have to fork up that it becomes difficult to have to pay your real estate agent. That extra bit of commission, that percentage, it becomes a little bit more difficult, right? It does, yeah. So as of late, they ruled that the seller is no longer responsible for paying the realtor of the buyer. So that throws the cost onto the buyer.
Which is you.
Which is you, because most of you people that are listening to our podcast are under the age of 35. You are now responsible for having that extra cash to pay a real estate agent. And you might be thinking, why do I need a real estate agent? I got Zillow. we're all good. The amount of paperwork that you need to do, the amount of legal work that you need to do to make sure that your home isn't rat infested is why you need a real estate agent. Actually, the whole reason that real estate agents even started was to protect the public. So when you start with real estate school, it's like, what is your job? And it's literally to protect the public to not get scammed. Is literally the purpose of it.
Well, thank you, realtors.
Exactly. So they keep pushing the bar further and further. So you had $20,000 as a down payment, but now you're going to need almost $30,000 to pay your real estate agent. So in 2021, the typical first-time home buyer was 33, according to 2022 data from the National Association of Realtors. 2 years and one price surge and inventory shortage and more than 10 Fed rate hikes later, that median age has gone up by 3 years as the dream of home ownership becomes more distant for millennials. There's no getting around how tough buying a home can be in today's high interest rates and high price housing market. Baby boomers recently edged out millennials as the largest share of home buyers. Boomers ages 58 to 76 made up 39% of home buyers in 2022, compared with 28% for millennials, according to NAR data from March. That's an increase from 29% last year and the highest percentage of any generation. Let's continue. Baby boomers have built housing equity over their working lives, and they have been able to build wealth, and now they're buying their dream vacation home or their second home. They just have more money. Millennials born between 1980 and 2000, that's us.
Oh, we're millennials now. We are millennials now.
Have been dealt a far different set of circumstances. From the dot-com bubble burst in 2000 to the Great Recession of 2008 and most recently the coronavirus pandemic, millennials, quote, have been hit with one recession after the next, unquote.
We're so tough.
I swear, the amount of shit we have been through is actually insane. And then for CEOs of companies to call us lazy and unwilling to work is literally insane.
And remember, they're calling you that from their leather chair and big desk while you actually put in the labor.
And I would also like for you all to recognize that we are one of the highest educated societies in the history of America. The amount of college graduates, I'm sorry, both men and women, because mind you, women weren't allowed to go to college until recent years. We're one of the highest educated. The amount of diversity in this country, right? We had 1980s influx of immigrants, all of that. And so for us to be so well educated and also so poor. Yeah, no, literally. Like, I'm 27. I still live with my parents.
I'm 27 and I live in my father's basement.
And so do all of my friends except for 3, which is insane. And the thing is, if we become a renter's economy, which I think we probably already have become a renter's economy.
It's snuck up on us for sure, yes, but they've even made renting seem easier than owning a house.
Yeah, which, okay, there's pros and cons to both.
But you build no equity. You pass nothing down when you rent. So, I mean, if you are childless, say a pair of couple of gays with no kids, it's perfect because then I don't have to have any maintenance responsibilities. But for someone like Nin, who wants a family, who wants children, who wants a legacy, having a house becomes that less obtainable.
No, literally becomes so unattainable. And also, don't forget, we have student loan debt, which makes it a little bit more difficult to buy a home. Yes, it goes into how much they estimate that you can afford to buy a home. So let's say your student loan payments are $1,000 every single month, or even $800. That takes away from how much you can afford to buy a home. So that line just keeps pushing further and further.
And that mortgage rate, my stepbrother was paying $5,000 a month for a mortgage. I don't even make that much a month.
That's actually insane. Yeah. So this article is saying that the national median home price hit $402,600 in July, up from $359,000 at the start of 2023. So this is talking about July 2023. The typical mortgage on a single family home is now $2,051 compared with $1,837 from a year ago today. And I think this, you need to take these numbers with a grain of salt, because depending on where you live on the map of that is the United States, you're going to have different averages. So a mortgage of $1,837, that's attainable. We can do that. I think in the Midwest, it's reached $3,000.
So now let's couple that with some things, right? Let's say you've got a couple of kids. You've got 2 kids who need daycare while you're at work. That's going to run you maybe $2,000 a month. Your groceries and childcare is going to run you even more. You have to pay your utilities. You have to pay your taxes, which never go down, by the way. Those don't go down. There's a lot to spend on that house. So the higher that mortgage is, the less money there is for the other important things in your life, like keeping your lights on.
Yeah, no, it's insane. So I just Googled what is the average mortgage payment for a $300,000 house. And the average home now is around $300,000. If you're doing it with a 7% interest rate, your monthly for a 15-year is $2,696. And if you want to do a 30-year, it's around $1,995. So just round it up to $2,000. I just want to ask everyone, if our whole point of becoming educated people was to be independent, with these mortgage rates and with these rents, we cannot be independent. We have to rely on somebody, whether that be a spouse, a best friend. Like, it's insane to me that we are 30 years old needing roommates in order to survive, but we're educated. So make it make sense. And we're not even lazy. Luke works a full-time job.
I remember when I was 19, I worked 2 full-time jobs to pay my rent and have spending money. I wish I still had the energy.
Yeah, it's actually insane to me. Like, we were kind of lied to. We were definitely lied to.
Well, I mean, I didn't believe it when they said go to college, you'll be successful.
Yeah, that's true. Luke did not believe that.
Because I was like, come on, man, how can I be successful with a $400,000 tuition fee following me around for the rest of my life? It's not obtainable. It's not real. We got to be more realistic. We have to bring back the American dream.
You sound like a politician.
Make America gay again.
So that kind of leads us up into the next one, which is birth rates. Yes, that is the number one thing that our politicians have become so obsessed with, is the birth rates. And that is why, one of the reasons why they overturned Roe v. Wade and put the decision in states' hands, because they want you guys to have more babies. Actually, fun fact, we are not birthing enough children to replace what is in the U.S.
Now, let's call it really what it is. We are not birthing enough children to give them raises and make more taxpayers.
Yeah, let's be fucking for real. Like, honestly, like, let's be for real.
More population, more taxpayers.
So let's go off of the CDC and what they have to say about birth rates in the U.S. of A.
Tell us what the CDC has to say about birth rates.
Well, of course, this research is all done from a year ago because, you know, research needs to be done and redone every single year. So in 2023, the birth rates declined for women ages 20 to 39 years. Declined.
So like not having babies.
Declined.
So we're not having babies.
Women
right
are
now.
not having babies as often or as many.
Now, so how is that compared to other age groups in other years?
So this one was insane, but 2023, the birth rates were unchanged for females aged 10 to 14 and 40 to 49.
So I'm going to hopefully say that this is because those age groups don't generally give birth as it is.
Well, I hope the 10 and 14 are not giving birth. But the 40 to 49, women start to hit menopause as young as like 46 and stuff like that. So it makes sense. The birth rate for teenagers aged 15 to 19 was down 3% in 2023 to 13.2 births per 1,000 women. The birth rate for women ages 20 to 24 reached a record low.
And we're at the age where our parents had children.
Yeah, my mom at my age already had me.
My mom had me at 23. I'm 27 now, and I have a cat.
Yeah. No, when looking at like our parents' generation, a lot of women had children around like 23, like the younger mid-20s. Yeah, no, we're hitting the later 20s and we're still not having children. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Of course I'm worried, because if we don't have people having children, then that means that we don't have a generation to build up for, the next go around. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's nice to see that people are taking the control that they need. They say, I'm not going to have a child just because it's expected of me.
I would have to disagree with you on that one.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, obviously, like,
Miss Traditional Values over here.
I am traditional values. But the thing is that when I have conversations with other women, it's not that they don't want children. It's that they don't feel like they're set up for success in their lives, that they would be unable to set up a child with success. And we wouldn't want, again, us women are getting educated. We're seeing life. We're seeing the lives that the women who lived before us did. And we wouldn't want to rely on a man to sustain our living, right? Whether we have children with that man or not, we don't want to rely on him, right? But with this society, we are becoming dependent on a man. Like, men are becoming dependent on women. They can't live on their own without somebody else. They need that dual income. And with that dual income also comes responsibility, right? So you're having these kids. Okay, cool. But you have to buy a house. You can't live rent in an apartment or in a house because that rent just keeps increasing and increasing.
And you're not saving anything to give your children.
Exactly. And then let's say eventually your child wants to go to college, right? You can't take out, like, let's say a second mortgage on your home because you don't even have a mortgage to begin with, right? And then on top of that, you have to send your child off to daycare because you're working that 9 to 5. But most of us are exhausted after our 9 to 5. And honestly, let's be realistic. A 9 to 5 isn't even a 9 to 5. It's like a 7 to 7 because you're waking up at 7 a.m.
I do a 6:30 to 3.
And then what time do you wake up?
5:45. No, 4:45. I got out of bed at 5:45 though.
Now imagine if you had a kid.
No. Because I still don't know how my parents got me ready for school and ate breakfast, made coffee, and everything they needed to do before work. I don't see it as possible. I'm late by 2 minutes every single day. And that's like a good thing. That's an improvement.
No, literally. And like, I feel because of the capitalistic greed in America, us women and men too, let's be for real, men want to be fathers. We are getting robbed of the human experience of to tend, to nurture, to love, to build community. We have gotten this far because of community. We haven't gotten this far because of money, because of capitalistic greed and gain. It's getting us nowhere. And I hope we as a society quickly realize that capitalistic greed is really getting us nowhere but 6 feet under, if we're being honest. All right. So that brings us up into our next section, which is?
We are going to be talking about our real median household income in the United States and how it's changed and how inflation has changed it.
Yeah, so real quick before we go into that, we were looking at the marriage rates, right? Because that is also something important to talk about. And marriage rates have steadily declined, literally declined since 1965. However, in recent years, they've started to go up a little bit. And the trend of it going up is interesting, and I wonder why.
I say it's because gay marriage was legalized, so now we have a bigger pool of people being married.
That's true. That could be a part of it. Also, I think because we are literally becoming dependent on one another to survive, to pay our rent, to pay our mortgage.
Yeah. These days they say it takes a throuple to pay rent.
You know what? Actually, multi-generational families are becoming a thing now.
Oh, actually, I kind of like that, though, because everyone gets to grow up together.
Well, yeah, but you have like the grandparents, the husband and wife, and the children all living in one unit type of thing, like a 3-flat type of thing, and they're all pooling in and paying the mortgage. However, that becomes difficult because you want your privacy, you want your space. Like, I don't want to hear somebody came over to your house and now I have to go say hi because, you know, they're my friends too. Mm-hmm. You know?
But so back to the median income for our average American household.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go over some numbers here. So, of course, we did the research for you. The average income for an American household in 2022 was $74,580. Now, what's really shocking to me about this is that it was a 2.3% decrease from 2021.
You mean 2021, the year after the pandemic?
Yeah.
Started?
In 2021, the average American household income was $76,330.
So we dropped by like $2,000.
Yeah, so basically the cost of living increased and our wages did not move anywhere.
They actually kind of declined.
So they did. And I kind of wanted to run this back and say, let's take a look at, you know, the average cost of living from our parents' generation.
Yeah.
So we checked out the average household income for 1985, which was $57,860. But there's a caveat to this.
Wait, but like 57,000 and 74,000, like that's not too far off. Why does it feel like homes are like 10 times more expensive than they were in 85?
So the answer to that is inflation.
Oh, you're right.
We checked out this calculator.
The inflation calculator run by the U.S. government, so it is super accurate.
$57,860 in 1985 has the same buying power today. Are you ready for this?
I'm so ready for this.
As $172,304.89. So in 1985, if you were to be making the average American household income now, you still couldn't afford a house today.
No, you could afford 172,000. If you and your household was making 172 grand, you could afford a house today. But again, clearly the average American is not making that money.
No, we are not.
No.
And it's just so shocking to me that, I guess we expect deflation, especially after 1985. We want these wages to catch up to the buying power that they had, but it seems that we're getting further and further away from it.
No, because think about it. If you and your spouse were making 172 grand, you'd be pretty comfortable, right? You'd be able to live your life, raise your kids, don't worry about living your life paycheck to paycheck. But Americans are only making 74 grand. So we are living life paycheck to paycheck.
We are making $100,000 less.
Yeah.
Than our parents.
Imagine how much $100,000 would change your life right now. If you made $100,000 extra in this 1 year, what would change? What would be different?
I would have all of my debt paid off.
And not only your debt paid off, but would you be married?
I might be. I would feel comfortable. You know what? Yes, actually, I would feel comfortable because I don't want to be married until I have a house, a spouse, and somewhere to put my cat.
So you're trying to tell me that if you and your partner together made 172 grand, would you feel comfortable getting married?
I think it'd be a no-brainer on that.
Exactly. If I was making 172 grand with my partner, then I would have no issue getting married.
I think today we call that power couple status. Can you imagine in 1985 someone making $57,860 as power couple status?
And you know what, too, is that you would feel comfortable having daycare for your kids. You would feel comfortable setting them up for success because your life is already set up at that basis for success.
Maybe you'll even tip 15% at the restaurant that you just ate at, and it won't be an issue.
Yeah. So if you guys can kind of see how all of these things are really intermingled and connected together, it's very, very, very important. And I think we need to use our voices. I mean, Luke and I are using our voices right now on this podcast to kind of educate the masses or educate whoever is willing to listen. That's why we use statistics from, federally backed resources and all of that, because if we're going to educate you, we want to educate you with facts and we want to educate you with statistics. Obviously, this is going to reach a smaller audience, but that small audience is going to go out and talk to more people. And if you start talking to people, you start to raise that awareness, and that's what is important. And the thing is that the whole idea right now in our US society is to divide and conquer. If they divide us, they can conquer us. But if we become collectivistic, if we become a community and recognize that we're all Americans at the end of the day and we want this country to thrive because we are living in it, right? It is our survival, then we can conquer, right? Because there's power to the people. After all, isn't democracy like for the people, by the people?
Exactly. And also remember this, everyone. This nation was founded on the belief that taxation is theft. Also, income tax was only to be implemented in times of war to fund the military. These two things are now no longer true in the free America that we live in.
Yeah. See, that's the other thing about this is that we have to learn our history. I know history is kind of just brushed off. History is not shit. It's just a class that we take. But history is so important. If you do not know history, you don't know shit. My professor always said that. If you don't know history, you don't know shit. And what does that even mean? Oh, you know what it means? Is that we have to look at what people did before us. They talked to each other. They gathered. They used their voices, raised their voices, made a ruckus, freaking spilt tea in the harbor because of a 2% tax. Americans are getting taxed in the 30% rate. We're getting taxed.
It's ridiculous. And how is America going to let France outrun its government? Those people know how to protest against their government, and they can actually organize against their government for change. Mm-hmm. The government just has us fight each other.
Yeah.
On Facebook.
No, literally on Facebook. We need to organize. And I think that once we do that, and once we start to talk about these things and recognize that your idea isn't, oh, I don't want kids, or no, I don't want to get married. That's not the idea. The idea is that if you want to have kids, if you want to get married, if you want to buy a home, that should be available to you. You shouldn't feel robbed of that experience. Like, you should feel as though, oh yeah, I'm renting right now, but if I wanted to buy a home, I could.
You know what I've learned also on this topic? There are so many governments around the world that pay you to have children.
Yeah, I know.
They literally send you a monthly allowance to help you fund that child.
Yeah, I think Australia is literally one of them.
I think China too.
Yeah.
And Sweden.
Yeah.
I'll check on Sweden.
But you know what the U.S. does? It forces you.
It gives you 6 weeks of maternity leave at the minimum.
We have no federal maternity or
Wait,
paternity
what?
leave. Yes. The U.S. has 0 days of mandated paternal or maternal leave when you have a child.
Are you supposed to take a fresh baby like to work with you?
Basically, again, funded on the principles of capitalism, because if you have a kid, you take him to daycare. This daycare is a business that pays taxes, and then you pay this daycare who also pays taxes. Like, everyone's paying taxes and they're getting money. But if you're at home taking care of your kid, well, you're not contributing to the pot of taxes. Just if you ask yourself, why am I doing X, Y, and Z? It's literally because of taxes. Like, just look at it. Is this making America money? And if the answer is yes, then yes. I mean, the whole reason we have roads is because of taxes. And then on top of that, they tax our roads by putting tolls, by putting cameras.
Your vehicle tax.
Let's not forget your vehicle sticker, your gas tax, all of these things. Like, let us not forget that every single little thing that we do that becomes so mundane is because we are funding a larger scale. And I saw this post that said, if we as a country are able to fund other people's wars, that's how you know we're being taxed way too much.
Oh, wow, that one kind of hit hard. You're absolutely right. We're funding other people to go unalive other people, but yet we have people here starving in the streets that fought for this country.
Yep. Yeah. Let's actually, real quick, can you touch basis on what veteran treatment is like? Because I would also like to touch upon that the U.S. Army saw an all-time low of recruitment this past year. Actually, we did not meet our basis of recruitment by 60,000 troops. And I wonder why.
Veterans are honestly treated so poorly.
Yes.
Very poorly. I've had so many mixed stories. You know what? I'll tell one story that really shook me. I once worked with a sales guy, and he was in Afghanistan. He was driving around at night, and at night you could not have your headlights on because that would give your location away.
Yes.
He drove off a cliff.
Oh.
He drove off a cliff, and he broke every bone in his back. So he could not be medevaced to the States. He had to be set up in a camp over in Afghanistan, in which he told me it was almost cruel how often the Army would come into, his officers would come in and they would ask him if it was okay to sign paperwork to say he was a waste of resources and just to let him expire.
So, like, he was nothing?
Yes.
Like, he didn't volunteer to fight for this nation?
Yes. And let's talk about the VA.
Yeah.
The workers of the VA are the most saintly people in the world because they are funded by the government, which means they have next to nothing to work with.
Yep.
My grandfather was a frequent flyer at the VA. He had health issues, and one of the biggest things that my mother would hear people complain about is the food that the veterans were being served. And all the doctors could say is, well, we're a government-funded entity. If you want food for your patient, you need to bring it from outside because it's not going to be here. And I can tell you from the 23 years that man died, it has not changed.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. And the thing is that if you work for community anything or government anything, you are overworked and underpaid, which to me is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, let's go look at our United States Postal Service. Let's not even go that far. The very place that is literally just responsible for mailing our checks have roofs that are caving in. Like, have you ever gone to a DMV or a post office and you're like, oh, this is nice? No, it's literally the dingiest, most disgusting place ever. Yet we have money, billions and billions of dollars. I don't think anybody really recognizes how much $1 billion is to fund other wars, other countries, but we don't have that to give to our education system. No, that's off of your property taxes. We don't have that money to cancel student loan debt. Yes, because student loan debt is responsible for a lot of things. People don't start businesses, don't start families, don't buy homes, all because they're in student loan debt. So we have that. And then on top of that, these very people that fought for the protection of our nation, that you have them deployed and traumatized both physically and mentally, and you're gonna treat them like shit. Like, when have you ever saw a VA hospital or any government hospital and be like, oh, that's a nice looking hospital?
It's honestly one of the scariest, most anxiety inducing places I think I've ever been inside of.
Exactly. Why isn't it one of the nicest places? Why isn't it the top of the line? After all, if you are run by the government, which is using everybody, 330 million people's taxpayer dollars to fund your facility, why are their facilities uglier, nastier, more dingy and outdated than places that are run by private companies?
And how can you not feed them food worth eating?
So, and the US government wants to wonder why people are not volunteering.
I sure as shit wouldn't.
No, what the heck? If you volunteer for 10 years, you get a school. What is that? The GI Bill for your education? Whatever. Also, if you're a VA and you want to buy a house, the only pro that you have is that you don't have to have a down payment for a VA house loan, which is nice. It does help. I'm not saying that it doesn't. However, how is a veteran that might be A, disabled, 2, mentally or physically traumatized, or, I don't know, graduated high school and went straight to battle and didn't get an education? You want them to go and what? They just went overseas and now you want them to come back, sit in an office, work 9 to 5? Like, where are we losing? I don't understand.
It's horrifying. It's a lack of respect for those who actually fought for this country.
Mm-hmm. They should be treated with the utmost respect. They're treated with respect by the people. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? The people aren't the ones sending over those checks. The people aren't the ones taking responsibility for these damages done.
Yeah. And I think it's important for the journalists that are out there and at like CBS News, Fox News, all of these news stations to fund a community like mine, right? Let's hear of happy news, happy things. Let's not be like, oh, on the south side of Chicago, this many people were shot and killed. Let's hear about the good things. Let's hear about the good things that the south side of Chicago is doing, or the west side, or whatever the side of Chicago it is. Let's hear about the happiness, the good. Like, let's work together, guys.
Come together.
Yes. Alrighty, everyone. I know we kind of talked about a lot today.
But we missed you so much.
We really did. We really did. We were kind of like out of focus today. We didn't even know how to set up the lighting. Yeah. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And until the next time, everyone.
All right, everyone, please join us next time as Nen decides that she's going to take a hot tub boat down the Chicago River and then go skinny dipping.
A hot tub boat? I'm kind of intrigued.
They don't clean the water out between uses.
Oh, all right.
Bye, everyone.